Hello, welcome back to Nisa's Players D&D Vault as we go through all the different parts and pieces to character sheets for the best understanding of what you're looking at, what you gain from it. This one is going to be primarily on the Feats and Traits section, which is right here on your character sheets. So this has things like your traits, and since we are working through Ezu's sheet, she is already set up as a rogue. When you use any of these class-specific templates, your first class's information will be input, and following the instructions on how to get your feats and traits for your race, for your background, etc., from the video on the Ultimate 5e character sheets. That is where you'll want to really go to understand what you're looking at. For inputting and where to get the information that you need to input. But for the most part, this is something that you only need to touch when you first create your character sheet and when you get your subclass for a character sheet, or if you end up multi-classing. So to start with, you have your class 1 traits. In this case, I have Rogue up. So you get the information you get at the start. You get all of the traits already put in these wonderful blue drop downs. And then you've got a section for your subclass information. So all of your class stuff is together. You have a spot for the table that you use when you do your level ups, built right in. A section for your racial traits when you get them. Your background traits or any other feats that you may get, such as at level 4, 8, etc. If you get a feat instead of a increase to your stats, then you would put that in here. And sections for class 2 traits and a class 2 table, which is of course empty at the moment. Now, this is using the tabs plugin, but I have found the tabs plugin to be quite buggy, and often when it is opened and then you close it again, I have seen it eat information, I have seen it duplicate and break and cause so many problems. And I want to prevent that for my players that are using this. And so I did find a workaround. And the workaround is actually forces you to go into this by the source mode, which is actually fairly easy. It sounds worse because it is in the coding, but that is the easiest way to do it. So that forces this little button up here instead. And that brings you into the code block. And so when you have your stats, you are going to copy the feats from the other page, whether that is the racial page, whether that is the subclass section at the bottom of this page, your backgrounds page, wherever it is, all of that those details are gone through in building a character sheet. You are going to then paste them in here. And then you just get to put them in and format them into a section that looks like this, because this is your blue drop down. Your header goes in between the stars and your description goes in here. Then you need to make sure that if you do have a second line, it looks like this. So there's no gap in between, and there is a indent with that inset button. And that will ensure that you can make as many lines as you want that stay within a blue drop down. It gives you a lot more options that way. So this one's got 3, and that keeps it all within sneak attack. Now, the thing with doing this is then this looks very clear. You've got one section that's a blue block, one section that's a blue block. You come down and you see this, that means it's the next column. Here's your archetype traits. You see a gap, you see tab, that means it's the next section. And so when you're putting in your racial traits, you're going to look for tab racial traits, and there's all your traits. Now, if you need more spots for your racial traits, you can go from below to above, Control C, and in either spot, Control V to add another drop down so that you have them. Backgrounds is a common one. Depending upon how you record your background traits, you may want more than one blue box in there. If you end up getting a whole bunch of extra feats, you're going to want that. If you end up adding to your class traits, your subclasses, things like that. So that is why we are going in here. Now, the workaround for those who are frustrated with tabs was to put tabs in a column that's not actually in a column. So in order to do that, I've had to make this column code quite wide because I have columns within my tabs as well, such as on that rogue traits page. So let's get this to read to the bottom of it. So you can see I've got columns within the tabs. So I have columns within columns, which just means that the original columns needs to be bigger than the other columns. And I started the tabs with the other symbol so that there was still no conflict between these two. Otherwise, this would need to be even bigger to accommodate for the tabs and then for the mini columns. I hope that made sense to the people it's supposed to make sense to. If you're one of my players, it doesn't matter for you. So that is what I did for Feats and Traits. Now, with that in mind, I do actually have some to enter because we are building a Sue's page. Now, hers, I am pulling from a page where they were within an info box. And so they actually have extra little doohickeys in them. So as I am going back and forth, I've got her racial traits copied now. I'm going to come up here to her racial section and put them in. And you can see they've got the little extra pieces because these drop downs fit within an info box. And in her old character sheet, they were in one. So I've just got to get rid of those. Doot. There. Next, I want to hijack her subclass traits that I had saved. I'm going to go over to that window and get them. Control C, come back in here, come into here, scroll down to our subclass section, archetype traits, select all of it and Control V. Oh, that one looks scary, except it's fine. It's just a whole bunch of the extra info box tabs. I get to delete those. And so you can see whether it's in an info box or it's not in an info box, the blue box, the drop down, needs to start every line with that wonderful inset that just separates it out. And so that is what I am doing, is removing it from an info box. Otherwise it'll give it a funky inset. So what I mean by that, let's give you an example. So while this one's still kind of off, let's step out of my box. Step out of the code block. And so this is what happens when it's got those extra doohickeys. Now it's going to be inset because it still thinks it wants to be in there instead of nice and neat. So I'm going to go back in, go find the one that I left behind, catch one that apparently I missed. And there we go. So there's her racial traits and her subclass traits. And so you can see how long this one is, but it's got all these extra boosts. And if I want to label something extra, I just put it in the double stars, and that's going to bold that so that now when I look at it, let it read to the bottom. So now that I'm out of the box, so when I look at Shinobi Tools, this is how big it is, but see, it's all nice and bolded so that I can see those extra sections a little nicer when I want to do that. And let me grab her background feats. We'll put those in. All her extra feats. So where I had them, they weren't actually very organized. So I am going to come over here. There's her background feats, and I'm just going to paste everything here. But some of this is not the most accurate. So past influence, seducers, wiles, and jaded came from her background. So I want those in here. So let's remove these extra info box lines. But mobile is a feat she gained extra. So we still have to remove those lines, but I want that in other feats. So I am going to select this like this and paste it right there. And all I did was select all of it in a line above and dragged and dropped it so that I have the ability to do that just like that to make it nice and easy. So rather than have to go back and forth copying and pasting each individual feat, I highly encourage you, when you are doing this from your class list, your subclass, your background, whatever, just copy the whole section, bring it in here, then you can format it to look like these. Or you can drag the pieces in to look like these, and that will be 1,000% easier. If you are starting to multi-class, I encourage you just to let your DM know. I am always happy to help, and I will throw these in for you so that it is much easier rather than you having to go for all of these, because I can just rip these from the templates of other pages. So I hope that that helps everybody kind of see what they're doing. I'm just going to go through this real quick. So we've got the columns, the tabs, columns in tabs, the column that keeps the tabs from breaking, and things like the table. So the table doesn't even need any extra information. It's just straight up put in there, ready to rock and roll. Racial tabs, ready to rock and roll with columns. Like, it's a fantastic system. It is simple. It looks complicated because, yes, technically you're touching code. It's not that bad. So have a great day. I hope you enjoy and hope this was helpful.